J'ai un truc sur l'écran, c'est normal?
Oui, tu peux dire OK. Ça dit que appuie sur l'écran.
Ah, OK. Got it.
Bon. Okay, so here we're back for the last part of the session 3 with Marine, Jacq, and Sabrina. Lentini, Marine, here with us, we talk about the environmental perception of the French Mediterranean coastline by the local population here. And Sabrina will talk about the use of social media platforms in the context of marine protected areas in Italy. Are you ready, Marine?
Yes.
Do you have a countdown of 15 minutes to...
Yes, we do.
Good.
Yes.
Here we go. Good luck.
Hello, everybody, again. So as Christophe said, I'm going to present you a content analysis about the environmental perception of the French Mediterranean coastline by the local populations. Yes.
Okay, my bad. Should work now.
Yes. Okay, so just to put things into context briefly, there is a growing awareness of ocean concerns, and ocean assets are known to worth a lot, either for resource exploitation and ecosystem services, obviously. And it's estimated to be around 2.5 trillion annually. So there is a need for meaningful rare research approaches for ocean conservation. More specifically, we are facing an unprecedented crisis, and it is often said that the Mediterranean Sea is the most polluted in the world. So here comes the goal of my study: to understand, compare and contrast opinions and perceptions of citizens, entrepreneurs and experts. I'm coming back to this just after. About the objective of this thesis. So first, it's to understand the opinion on Mediterranean Sea protection challenges, then to sow seeds and ideas to meet the needs for environmental preservation, and ultimately to pave the way to new relevant recommendations in collaboration with the two host institutions, Earthship Sisters and the Agence de l'eau. Briefly about the context, such studies are often released in diving clubs, sailing association, harbors, just to say to people who had received outreach. So one of my goals here was to reach forgotten people, the ones who had not received outreach. Here are the 9 departments of the study. And here are the 3 subgroups that I spoke about before. So citizens, entrepreneurs, and experts. We can come back to the definitions later if you want to. I'm not going to go into details here. So as I said before, my goal is to understand, compare and contrast opinions and perceptions of citizens, entrepreneurs, and experts. This goes through several points, mainly the knowledge about the Med-Sea threat, the perception of the Med-Sea, the feelings and concerns of people, knowing if their knowledge is biased or not, their behavior, and the differences between the subgroups. About the content, so I first designed the survey, which is called Méditerranée en nous. Then I collected data, and I analyzed them towards a reflection on the current situation and knowing how to move forward. Briefly about data collection, the survey was released between the 27th of February and the 1st of April 2021, and I got 608 answers, which is actually 9 times more than the number of answers to the 2019 official national consultation. So that gives value to the work. I put also specific efforts to optimize ownership, reduce bias, and reach a representative panel of the population. And we can go through that later if you want to. I got 4 main research topics. First, the threats, then the protection, then the field reality, and finally, the focus on entrepreneurs and experts specifically. So beginning with the threats. First question was open-ended. Why is the Med-Sea under threat, or why is it not under threat? So the 608 answers were classified into 6 subcategories, which were pollution, biodiversity loss, overexploitation, overfrequentation, and invasive species, and others. So what we can see first is that pollution is the most spontaneously mentioned threat. Spontaneously here is the keyword, you'll see right after why, but pollution is definitely the one that comes up the most. Then there's the invasive species here. Oops, sorry, here. And we can see that experts definitely mention it more than the two other categories. The little graph on the top is just to see that experts mention it more than the two other categories. Okay, so I spoke about spontaneously just before because I came up with predetermined topics for the respondents, and they had to say whether they find it worrying, extremely worrying, etc., etc. So first, what we can see is there are redundancies, mostly for pollution and biodiversity loss, but also discrepancies. And one that I found interesting was about climate. So you can see on the screen, I don't know how to point it, but you can see that climate disruption.
Sure.
You can see that the climate disruption is worrying to people, that's obvious, but they do not mention it spontaneously that much. So that raises the purpose of connectedness. Do they connect it with the medicine? Okay, then I had headlines. I proposed headlines to people and they had to say whether it raised their curiosity or not. What we can see first is that the one that is really catchy, that everyone knows, in 10 years' time, there will be more plastic than fish in the Med Sea, raises curiosity of all the respondents. Then we can also see that the entrepreneurs are interested in several headlines. Like they seem to have broad, not knowledge, but broad interest, let's say. Then the one with the word endemism, the third one, did not raise curiosity of citizens, even though the word endemism was defined. And finally, the last observation here is that broader sentences, such as the Med Sea, semi-enclosed by land and 3 continents, is part of one big ocean and has many unique features, did not raise curiosity of people. So to discuss that point, we can say that nowadays people mostly find information through social media, newspapers, TV, etc., etc. And the more expert they are in a field, the more they tend to go towards more specific sources of information. Here it's scientific papers, obviously. So that leads to open questions that we can discuss later. First, what makes experts experts? And then why would citizens miss the information sometimes? Oops. Okay, so going on with the Mediterranean Sea protection now. Here, 2 multiple choice questions. What do you think is needed to protect the Med Sea? And what are you ready to embrace? The 3 main topics here are reduce plastic consumption, take daily actions, and change food habits. Here, do not look at the numbers because it's not friendly, but this table synthesizes the ratio between what's accepted by people and what's required. So this goes towards the willingness for tangible behavioral change. The only thing you have to understand here is that orange is the absence of compliance and green is the willingness for compliance. So 2 interesting findings here. Entrepreneurs are not ready to limit their numeric consumptions, whereas citizens are. And on the contrary, entrepreneurs are ready to rethink their relationship to transportations, whereas citizens are not. So, okay, oversimplification here, oversimplification, but just for you to understand the broad concept, here are the little smiley faces. Okay, to discuss that, to discuss that point, I found interesting to speak about the fight, flight, freeze behavioral response. That means basically that when you face a crisis, you have 3 main ways to respond: to fight, to flight, or to freeze. So obviously citizens, entrepreneurs and experts here would not respond the same way to the environmental crisis. So here the question would be, how could the gap between subgroups be filled, actually? Speaking now about the field reality. Okay, here the analysis was interesting by age category. I asked people about the obstacles they faced on the path to action. So first, what we can see is that all of them have troubles knowing what to do and how to do it. That's a huge finding. Then also, all of the respondents raised political concerns. That's interesting because there were no political concerns proposition on the question. It's only in the open-ended last box, that people raised political concerns. So that means that they spontaneously mention it. And then we have this finding that I found really interesting. All of the people of any age feel guilty when we speak about the Med-Sea preservation, but none of them feel resignate. So the question that came after was one with a sentence that I proposed, which is the major threat is the unsustainable exploitation of resources. That's not scientifically correct. I'm okay with that, but it was just to analyze their reaction to such sentence. And what we can see here is that most of them are surprised. So that goes with the previous findings. Discussion here would be hope and guilt. When do you use hope? When do you use guilt? How do you use them? That's a really important question. Then the geopolitical concerns, people raise them. So there's obviously something to do here. And finally, the message framing. So basically, how do you hand the message? How do you write it? How do you give it? How do you make people understand? Okay, digging deeper now with the entrepreneurs and the experts. Speaking about the entrepreneurs, an interesting finding was that males were way overrepresented here, and also the Bouches-du-Rhône departments. There are reasons for that we can speak about later if you want to, but that's kind of interesting because it's linked to a broader trend, let's say. Most entrepreneurs spoke about pollution, and they proposed to use the Med-Sea as a tool for exploration through sports, activities, etc. Switching on to experts now, they were asked if they felt their expertise was useful. So obviously, we can say yes, experts feel useful, but nonetheless, there is a need for expertise elicitation through, for example, popular science. There's also a need for communication and information transmission. That's obvious. So here are some examples of popular science articles, books, and podcasts. So they definitely exist, but there's a need to improve them and to reach more and more people with them, with like popular supports that people can understand and can relate to. So that leads to the conclusion. First, there is a clear understanding that the Med-Sea is threatened by human activities. Oops. Pollution, biodiversity loss, and overexploitations are the three major threats. And we observed differences between the subgroups. The restricted understanding or distorted awareness may be attributed, as we said before, to distinct information sources. So that's definitely a point to dig deeper. There's also a discrepancy between the need to act and the actual willingness to change. And that goes with a need for an improved marine education and ocean literacy programs to increase public understanding again. I found interesting to mention also that there is the connection between the bottom-up effect of citizens and entrepreneurs when they are well informed and the top-down adjustments of experts through popular science, for example. There's also the importance of the marketing vision for concrete actions. That means that we have to market the environmental concerns and preservation so that the people can really grab them and use them. Obviously, public awareness is the first key step towards a real change. And all of these little bullet points here highlight the value of perception research in marine management. So that's it for me. And I would like to just briefly acknowledge my tutrice, Deborah, who is probably watching YouTube now. So thank you, Deborah. And also Pierre Boisserie from the Agence de l'Eau, who gave me really valuable insights all through the thesis. And as I see I have 1 minute more, I want to finish on a quote from Sid Darrell, which is many of us ask, what can I as one person do? But history shows that everything good and bad starts because somebody does something or does not do something. And I'm early, but I'm finished.
Thank you, Marine. Thank you, Marine. And I'm sure that Juliette Gilotto, who is really close here, will have appreciated your sentence from Sylvia. Her hero. So hello back to the jury. We will start with Aldine and then with Eric for this 15-20 minutes of questions. Enjoy, Marine.
Hi, Marine. Thank you so much for your nice social study. So I have a question regarding how did you design the survey, actually?
Okay. So to design the survey, I had first several meetings with, I can see my face in like 4. So I had meetings, several meetings with Pierre Boisserie from the Agence de l'Eau, because he commissioned the study. So he told me what he wanted to go towards, but I had kind of well, I can see I was quite free to design the survey. So I chose the 4 axes that I showed you, and then I designed the questions. And when I had finished to design the questions, I submitted them to an anthropologist so that I was sure that the way I wrote them and the way they were formulated did not induce bias. Not too much, at least. And so, yes, and then I ran a trial with like, I think it was 15 people, so that they can give me feedback about how they felt, if it was too difficult, too easy to understand. I mean, if the questions were related to each other, like just how they felt about the survey. And then I launched it to a broader audience.
Okay, so did you find in the literature some survey that inspire you to design yours? Yes,
I did. Actually, I read a paper. I can't remember the name of the author, I'm sorry, but it was a survey that compared several studies from all over the world on this subject, ocean awareness broadly. And so I could find ideas to say, okay, that's an interesting topic. That's because, like, as it was a written paper already, I had the results in the discussion and I could say, okay, that's interesting. They don't speak too much about that, so that must not be that interesting, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question. So what is your main highlight of your survey?
That's a good question. Okay, I would say for me, like the one that I was the most happy about, let's say, was the first one with the invasive species. Because like we could really see that experts significantly have other knowledge than the 2 other categories. And I found it really cool to see that much in a result. So I could say, okay, definitely experts have a knowledge that other people can't reach. So there's something to dig here. So that I would say that's my main highlight, but there are so many interesting results.
Okay.
It's the one I was the most happy about.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we go to Eric, sorry, Eric, we will jump to Christophe Humbert first, maybe.
Hold on. Yeah, can you hear me, Marina?
Yes.
So I have one question. I think it's linked. I will go further to the question Aldine asked on the how the survey has been built. Did you take into, because obviously if it's only French people, there would be different responses than if it would be, I don't know, people from the US or Germany, because did you take into account any cultural origin in respondent to the survey?
Okay, so I'm not sure I entirely got the question, but if that's your question, it's only French people, like French from French nationality people that answered the survey, and I made sure of that in the post production, like when I had the raw data, I just go one by one to see blah blah blah. But other than that, I could not see, I mean, all of the people were on the same basis, like they were just French citizens from the French Mediterranean coastline. But I don't have anything else to say about that.
Yeah, and I just asked this question because the French are reluctant to change, and so when it comes to, you know, proposing changes, people are always a bit reluctant.
Yeah, that's true. That shows in the results, actually.
That was my question.
Okay, thank you, Christophe. Sorry.
Thank you.
Eric?
Yes, hi, Marine. Thanks for your enthusiasm as usual.
Thank you.
I have a few questions about also the definitions and the terms that you used. I'm a little bit confused about your definition of experts or citizens, entrepreneurs. Where does it coming from, and how do you define this? Because for me, everybody is a citizen, are the experts. So
you're right. You're right. Okay, I'm trying to come back to the right slide. Woo.
Hi, Anthony.
But okay. So basically, the idea was, that was my idea, not the one from the Agence de l'eau, but it was just to kind of raise a contrast between people who work with the métier on a daily basis, like who research on it, who really use it as a professional tool, let's say, and to contrast them with people who did not necessarily know anything about the métier. That's why I chose to have a specific focus on usually non-concerned people among the citizens. Because like, obviously you're right, like, I mean, experts are citizens and entrepreneurs are citizens, but the idea was really to reach new people among the citizens and to contrast their opinion with people working on the métier and having specific knowledge on the métier, just to see if their perception, their knowledge, their concerns were the same or not, and how we could link them together. And entrepreneurs were kind of there to make this link, because like they work with the métier, not necessarily on, but with the métier. And so they could definitely work through that. I mean, connect, we could definitely imagine an entrepreneur whose business, whose activity is to connect citizens and experts. That's actually what we do here at MARRES a little bit.
Okay, my other question was, I think it's one of the next slides, where you said that there's less willingness to get information or something. Perhaps I got it. I'm not 100% sure I agree with that, because your sort of result of the survey sort of showed that concerning one aspect, they're less sort of receptive about, no, I think it's another one, but it doesn't matter which one. Okay. It was really how the interpretation of the data, because I think you had different questions, and then you showed, okay, people reacted, this makes me curious, and this doesn't make me curious. I think that was the question. And then your conclusion of that was, okay, they're less willing to get information or something. Mm-hmm. I don't really agree with that. It's not because I'm not interested in something, I'm not interested in getting the information.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I care less. Okay, yeah. And then I have my own reasons why I care less for this and this. So I was wondering exactly why you came to that conclusion about.
Okay, I must have misspoken, because that's obviously not what I wanted to say. But you're right. It just means that people do not reach information. That absolutely doesn't mean that they don't want to reach it. But I must have misspoken. I'm sorry. but you're right. Yeah, that's definitely the conclusion of it. It's like, okay, so people here aren't curious about the subject. So that means that at one point they couldn't reach it.
But perhaps it's that. But why? It's not. So it doesn't. Even if I know everything and I think it does make me curious, it doesn't mean that the information didn't came to me, or I was not interested enough to go and find the information.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's definitely a bias of the study. Okay, that's how I interpreted it. But you're right. That's definitely biased. You're absolutely right.
I just try to understand why you came to this conclusion. So
okay, that was just like, for me, if you aren't curious about something, that means that you kind of miss something here. I mean, but you're right, not necessarily.
I think it's a tricky part about perception studies. Interpretation at the end is something, but here you have three groups. Keep your category: citizens, entrepreneurs, and experts. So let's say the experts are aware, they have the information based on your definition, but they don't care really. So it's the same reaction as all the others. So it's less the amount of information that one person has, how they react. So keep that in mind when you continue.
Yeah, you're definitely right. Yes, that's something that would be interesting to further investigate. Yeah, you're right.
So I will let the others ask questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. So we will go to Luana and then to Florent. Luana.
Okay, thank you so much, Marine. I really liked your presentation. One of the things, you did really well. And one of the things that reached me and that I found super interesting is the fact that you're trying to see the obstacles that they face when they try and go to a path of action, you know. I think that's super interesting. So well done.
Thank you.
I had two questions. I wanted to see first, because the experts and the entrepreneurs were a lower number than the citizens you reached, which challenges you faced to get these numbers? Would you have liked to have more? What happened there? Or is it the numbers that you were expecting, basically?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, actually. So, okay, I was expecting at the beginning around 50 of each. I reached 30 of each. That's not too bad. But okay, so what I did is that I made sure prior to launching the study that they would be representative of the one that I wanted to interrogate. Because like, I was thinking, okay, if I release that, anyone who is an entrepreneur, even I don't know, an entrepreneur in the public buildings, would say I'm an entrepreneur. So I tried to reach them directly. Many of them weren't reached directly; they just answered, and I checked that they were on the right category. But I also reached them directly, so I was sure that I would have at least a little bit of them, so I could say, okay, that's at least representative of the population. So yeah, I definitely faced challenges to do that, but that was funny, and that was okay to like just resend messages. Hello, can you answer my survey? I'm a student from MARRES. That was interesting, and it actually was like a kind of a deeper work, but that was an interesting part.
Very nice. And do you think you would have changed, like, would you change anything next time to kind of reach more of these people?
I think one thing I would change, but I couldn't change, is that I would go on site, but I couldn't due to COVID. But I think if you go on site, you reach people easily. I think so.
Might be a bit easier, yeah.
Yeah.
I have the last question. I don't know if I have time. Do I have time, Christophe?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to know one of your behaviors. I think you said reducing plastic consumption, but also you had one that it was daily changes.
Yeah.
What would that imply? Like for me, reducing plastic consumption is a daily change kind of thing. So what was it exactly?
You're definitely right. So in this question, it was not open-ended. I proposed several stuff, and I wanted to make sure any people, again to kind of reduce bias, I wanted to make sure people could relate themselves at least to any of the propositions. And so I thought reduce plastic consumption is more specific. So people who actually work on their plastic consumption would take that one. But I also wanted to reach people who are just, okay, I'm just taking daily actions, not specifically on plastic, not specifically on changing my food habits, not specifically on anything, but I'm just every day trying to make something better. But definitely, yes, the one in like daily action is the broad category for plastic consumption and also for food habits. So yeah, that's definitely intricate.
Okay, you didn't put any definition there when they ticked, so they would have like a basic example What?
Yes, they had basic examples. Yes, they did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
We can go to Florent and then Jean-Vincent.
Okay, thank you very much, and congrats for your presentation, which is really interesting. Mainly, to my point of view, towards the entrepreneurs' figures, the entrepreneurs' public. Two of my questions were already asked by my colleagues.
Yes, that's good
But
for me.
I have plenty others, more tricky. First, a remark. I think I would have loved to have your questionnaire to see what was in it and what were the question when you had some replies already written.
Yes,
and,
yes, you're right. But I had to choose. 15 minutes is so short. I couldn't put everything.
Just and some figures also to see as it's a quantitative survey, right? It's not a qualitative survey; it's a quantitative.
It's possible,
yeah. So some figures would have been interesting to be shown.
Yeah.
The questions: if you had only one action to take and to address to for example the entrepreneurs, because the main public is the general public is something undefined, so it's hard to address. But to the entrepreneurs, what would it be?
One question. One question I will ask.
One action.
Okay.
Let's say awareness action.
Yeah. Okay. That's a tricky one. I would say there's actually not one action, but if you, I know I'm not answering the question, but I would say as long as the action you're doing passionates you and that you are able to reach people, then just do it. But I can't think about one specific action actually. There are so many, like
even with the results you got.
Yeah. I don't know. You can work on like the classic one. Try to make people understand why there is a need to reduce plastic consumption. There is the one about I don't know. There are so many of them.
Okay.
So hard to choose, but yeah, definitely I would say.
You didn't find there is some relation between the business and the environment, for example, in their answers?
Yes, there is. Obviously, there is. Because like when you create value from something, from the environmental crisis, then obviously you can reach people more easily.
Okay, so that would be a first step, maybe.
Yeah, okay. Definitely. Yeah, create value and then reach people and say, okay, you should do that because it costs this if you don't do it.
And as you struggle to, you seem to struggle to have entrepreneurs' answers, and maybe you saw that there is like a wave about social and ecological entrepreneurship, impact entrepreneurship. Where are you? How would say? Did you have the opportunity to ask or to send your questionnaire to some networks dealing with social or environmental entrepreneurship?
Yes, definitely. That's something really interesting because like my internship was hosted by Hership Sisters, and I actually didn't want to use their network, their network too much, because that would have biased the survey. So yes, I contacted some networks, but I tried also to kind of vary it so my answers wouldn't be biased, because I only contacted the 27th answer I got came just from one network of entrepreneurs, because I thought it would not be that interesting. I mean, my goal was really to reach as many people and as many diverse entrepreneurs as possible. So I use them, but I tried not to use them too much.
Good answer.
Thank you, Florent. So we'll go with Vincent and conclude then with Elena.
So you had 3 categories of people.
Yep.
Will you change that? And would it be relevant to add more?
Okay, would I change that? If I wanted to do less work, yes. But no, not just kidding. But I actually wouldn't change it because it was the basic idea of the study. Like, I mean, the first idea I had when I was charged of the study was, okay, I want to really reach new people and compare as many of them as possible. So I had to do categories because like just comparing people one by one wouldn't be possible. But I would definitely not change it. And would I add some categories? I could, but I can't think of one right now. Because I think citizens, entrepreneurs, and experts pretty much covers the whole population. But I could divide, for example, I don't know, I could say, okay, among citizens, I'd like to distinguish harbor, people working in harbor and people working in anything else, and people like, I mean, I could also distinguish the professions and also the level of interest in the métier, saying, okay, there's a category of people who do not care about the métier at all, and people who care in the middle, and people who highly care. But I think there's like many possibilities to do subgroups, but that was the easiest way to do it for 6 months internship, actually.
But more time and more.
But yeah, definitely we could imagine other subgroups.
Yeah, like coastal people.
Yeah, exactly. I thought about it actually, but I was like, okay, I have the departments, I have the age, I have. I was like, okay, that's okay. I'm gonna.
Honest. No, but it's also an interesting point to know also what you can do in 6 months.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Elena, so to conclude.
Okay, so thank you for the presentation. I have a question about the future. So which are the future perspectives of your survey?
Okay, so I'm actually really happy about that because like the Agence de l'eau, who commissioned the survey, is going to use my data for broader purposes. So in the future, there's definitely, my data set will definitely be used. So that's really cool, I would say, because like, I know I didn't work for kind of nothing. So in the future, this data will be, I think they will probably come up with more data, but that's basic study to begin with. So yeah, in the future, this will be used for sure. And there's also a webinar that is planned in the coming days to present my data to the Agence de l'eau also. So that's really cool because it means that it's not lost data, it's really like kind of usable.
Okay, and when you said that your objective was to reach for people, do you think that you succeed based on the rate of the answers? And what could you do more?
Okay, I would say I succeed. At least I succeed as much as I wanted to succeed. Because like again, in 6 months, you can't really do anything you want. But I really tried hard to go into diffusion channels that weren't used before. So I would say that yes, and I can say that it's reflected in the data actually. Because like I had many people in the open questions that wrote, okay, I just saw the survey, but I don't know anything about the métier, but I'm happy to learn, and I had many of them. So I think I succeed.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully.
Nice. Thank you, Marine. So thank you also for jury for your questions. Marine, good luck.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Yes.
I say see you soon because you have to know also that tomorrow is a farewell day, and so with a bunch of students we'll go kayaking at Cap d'Antibes for the end of the year.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, really, as the last time. Do you see the presentation of Sabrina? Thank you. Sabrina, you can go. Good luck.
Welcome, everybody, to the last presentation of the day. So today I'm going to talk about the use of social media platforms to raise awareness on marine protected areas and on marine conservation in Italy. The presentation is going to follow a scientific research outline. So humans depend on the ocean, yet the ability of the ocean to preserve its ecosystem services as well as the well-being of the biodiversity and habitats is threatened by anthropogenic activities such as pollution, coastal development, and fishing, and many others. But what are these ecosystem services? Well, we have provisioning services, which refer to food, raw materials, genetic resources, and medical resources. We have regulating services, which refer to carbon sequestration and climate regulation, as well as cultural and social economic services, which refer to cultural, spiritual, and historical heritage, recreational activities, and educational activities. So to preserve the ecosystem services, as well as the well-being of the ocean in general, humans came up with marine protected areas. So over the past decades, marine protected areas numbers had increased to 18,533 in number, which seems a lot. However, it represents only 7.68% of global marine protected areas. Furthermore, marine protected areas are created to preserve and conserve the ocean, as well as the well-being of biodiversity and habitats. However, the level of protection of marine protected areas does ranges to seasonal closure to non-take zones. This latter refers to the non-permission of any extractive activities such as drilling, mining, and many, many others. Furthermore, there are specific challenges within marine protected areas, such as the relationship with the locals, as seen, for example, in the marine protected area of Portofino, where before the establishment, the locals and the fishermen and the stakeholders were afraid that with the MPA, less tourism and less fishing was going to be permitted. And that brought to the establishment of the MPA, but with less protection. Furthermore, 65% of the MPAs globally have an adequate management budget, and 91% have an adequate and insufficient staff capacity. No difference is for the Mediterranean Sea. So the Mediterranean Sea covers only 0.82% of the global oceans, but it's home to around 17,000 species, which is quite a lot. It's between 4 and 18% of the global biodiversity. Again, this is threatened. We can say that Italy has a large part of the Mediterranean Sea, but only 99.74% of the Italian Mediterranean Sea is protected, with 0.06% implemented and 0.01% fully protected. So in 2020, the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity approved and adopted a new target, the 30 by 30 target, to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030. And Italy wants to be part of it, or better. The nonprofit organization World Rights Onlus has launched the campaign 30 by 30 Italia in November 2020 to get 30% of the Italian Mediterranean Sea fully protected by 2030. The first aim of the campaign is to get the Italian government on board. And how to do that? For raising awareness, which is a crucial part for a successful environmental movement. It shows that mass media is an important way to communicate environmental needs. And recent studies have actually showed that traditional media, such as articles, magazines, TV, has actually brought to a pro-environmental behavior change, and therefore the raise of awareness on environment. With the rise of the internet, we have a whole new world, a more active, a more approachable, a faster way to communicate about the environment, and therefore bring actual environmental change. So let me quickly say the aim of the presentation. I would like to assess the effectiveness of social media platforms as a potential tool to increase public awareness on protected areas through the analysis of 4 social media platforms of the campaign 30 by 30 Italia. To make it a little bit more simple, I have subdivided the aim into 3 parts. I would like to assess the level of public interest in marine protected areas via the analysis of social media followers over a 6 months time span. I would like to assess the public engagement with the conservation related content posted on the social media platforms, as well as identify a potential approach to be implemented for a successful social media marketing strategy. So how to do that? I have collected data from 4 different social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So you have to know that social medias actually have archives, which are known as insights, in which you can see some information about the audience, but you can especially see how the audience interacts with the content that you put out there. So for the first aim of the presentation, I'm looking at followers over time, and therefore I collected the followers over time. For the second aim, I'm looking at the users' engagement with the marine related content, which was divided into 5 different categories, which is awareness, so content to bring awareness about the Med Sea and the ocean; research, which is the identification of the biodiversity and the habitat of the Mediterranean Sea, so to show the audience who actually lives in the Med Sea; action, which are small actions that you can take to help the Mediterranean Sea and as well get to the 30 by 30 target; article, which is the acknowledgement by any third party outside of the campaign; and tag, which refers especially to Instagram stories. So it's when somebody tags the campaign 30 by 30 Italia on their personal or professional Instagram story. So the 2 tools of to identify users' engagement is impressions reach, which refers to the number of times that the post has been seen, or the number of unique accounts that have seen the post; and interactions. So we're talking about saves, comments, likes, which may change according to the social media platforms. For the third sub-aim, I'm looking at demographic data, or at least I'm starting from there, which refer to location, top industries, gender, and age. So let's jump into some results. So to assess the level of public interest in marine protected areas, I'm looking at change of followers over a 6 months time span. For a linear regression, you can see that for Facebook and Instagram, the linear regression is positive and the results are significant. Furthermore, for LinkedIn and Twitter, on the contrary, the linear regression is negative and the results are non-significant. So there is a change for Facebook and Instagram, but not for LinkedIn and Twitter. To assess the level of public interest in marine protected areas, I'm looking at if the audience impression reach and interactions do change according to the different categories. So for a Crystal Wallace test, you can see that for Facebook impressions reach and interactions, the results are non-significant. Therefore, the impressions reach and the interactions do not change according to the different categories. Same results you can see for the Instagram post, interactions reach and impressions reach and interactions, as the results are non-significant. However, for the Instagram stories impressions reach, you can see that there is a significance. Therefore, the audience impressions reach do change according to the different category. And more specifically, you can see that the audience do not really like action and article. For LinkedIn, it's the same as for Facebook and Instagram posts. The results are non-significant, and therefore the audience impressions reach and interactions do not change according to the different categories. For Twitter, is exactly the same. But here there's a but. As you can see on the right chart, it does show a change. But as the results are non-significant, I believe more in the statistical results. Therefore, I conclude with the audience impressions reach and interactions do not change according to the different categories. To start identifying a potential approach for a successful social media marketing strategy, I looked at location, which mainly was in Lombardia, in Italy, and in the region of Lombardia in the cities of Milan and Rome. So Lombardia is found in the north, Milan is found in Lombardia, and Rome is the capital of Italy. For top industries interested in the campaign, we have nonprofit organization management and environmental services, which fall in line with the campaign. For age and gender, for Facebook, the main audience was between 35 and 44 years old and predominantly female. And for Instagram, the main audience was between 25 and 35 years old, which was younger female and older male. So let's quickly analyze the results. Let's try to answer to the question, to what extent is the public involved in the campaign 30 by 30 Italia, and therefore with marine protected areas? So with the increase of followers of at least Instagram and Facebook, which actually are the main social medias used in Italy, we can see that there's an effective interest in the campaign 30 by 30 Italia, in marine protected areas and in marine conservation, and it indicates a spread of interest among the Italian population. For the second aim, we can see that the absence of any preference by the audience between the categories does confirm the effective raise of awareness and interest in marine protected areas and in marine conservation. And the overall demographic data shows that there's a specific audience for each social media platform. So what is the problem? Social media is becoming a huge tool used in civil society as well, be it with nonprofit organizations. And if used effectively, they can bring to environmental change as well as pro-environmental behavioral change. The problem is that this effectiveness is not really seen. Let's take, for example, environmentally friendly products. So only 10% of the consumers do purchase environmental friendly products, which means that the rest is aware that they're good for the environment, but do not actually reach out and purchase them. Same thing can be seen for every other environmental problem. Furthermore, previous studies focuses mainly on people and nature, so the relationship between people and nature, biodiversity monitoring, so taking a picture or a video of a specific species, and online discussion, which is seeing if environmental problems are actually discussed on the internet, but that's it. So limited studies focuses on the role of social media as a trigger for environmental conservation. So how do we get the information out there? So social media platforms are heavily used by nonprofit organizations, and they use multiple social media platforms as well to mobilize citizens nationally and internationally at a minimal cost. However, there is an incomplete familiarity with the potential marketing opportunities of social media platforms. So if you think about it, in 2019, social media networks reached 2.72 billion users, becoming a valuable tool for marketing, revolutionizing the business world, something that can also be applied to nonprofit organizations. However, 91% of the market struggle to identify a successful social media marketing strategy that it's even more applied to nonprofit organizations. If you think about it, for markets, less users' engagement on social media means less money. For nonprofit organization, less users' engagement means less awareness, therefore means less or no environmental change at all. So it's necessary for the environmental nonprofit organizations to develop an active and innovative approach to keep engagement and update about the various changes with the social media platforms. So we looked at marine protected areas, and we looked at the problem of marine protected areas. We looked at the possible solution, which is raising awareness, a possible tool, which is social media platforms, and we have analyzed the tool. And we found out that social media platforms are an effective tool to raise awareness on marine protected areas and on marine conservation. As nonprofit organizations do take advantage of social media platforms to raise awareness, they have to understand its characteristics and as well the audience that it attracts. And as social media marketing, it is acknowledged, it is possible to raise awareness on marine protected areas and on marine conservation, finally reaching the target 30 by 30. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. So, Sabrina, we will go to see if the jury is still here. We'll come back on the previous slide, sorry. Yes, so we will start here locally with Elena, then it will be Jean-Vincent.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I just want to go back a little bit on how you have done this, because maybe it's me that I didn't get it. Mm-hmm. So it was like a dedicated page for marine protected areas where you publish content.
No, it's for the, so Italy, this nonprofit organization has launched the campaign 30 by 30 Italia, which essentially is to get, to raise awareness about the big actual objective of the 15th meeting of getting 30% of the ocean, global ocean protected by 2030. Okay. So they want to do the same thing Like for them, they wanted to start from Italy because that's their territory. And they want to get the Italian government on board. But to get that on board, you need to let the Italian population know actually about the campaign and know about the importance of the Mediterranean Sea and why we have to protect it.
Okay.
And so for the social media platforms, they're trying to reach that, especially with COVID, because you couldn't really do events, you couldn't really do anything.
And you think that it was sufficient what they do, or you can do more, publish more content and try to engage more in?
Yes, well, it really ties to the conclusion that I brought to the presentation, because, so first of all, in Italy, 80% of the population uses Facebook, 64% uses Instagram, 34 uses Twitter, and 31 uses LinkedIn. So Twitter and LinkedIn are actually pretty much not used. And that's also how I explain the fact that the linear regression was not significant within these two last social media platforms. And for them, the campaign mainly focuses on Instagram and then goes to Facebook and then to LinkedIn and doesn't really use Twitter. So for me personally, because I was there with them when they first launched the campaign, I saw really fast and good growth. But I do believe that there is a need for an effective social media marketing designed just for them and designed just for marine conservation to get even more, to push even more, and to try to use even the other two social medias even more, and try to understand how to implement the whole picture to get as much as information out there, because in reality, I mean, 2030 is not that far away. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Jean-Vincent, so, and then we'll go to Florent.
Yeah, quick, two questions. A quick one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You wrote 17,000 species representing between 4% to 18%. And why this range? Because
I believe. Oh, sorry.
Because I thought that one number equal to 1%. So
I said around. Maybe I didn't say around. I was supposed to say around 70,000 species, because in reality, I mean, as we all know, like there's so much more biodiversity that we need to discover. So that's why there is a between 4 and 18. But I should have specified and said like around 17,000 species.
Big range.
Yes, that's exactly, yes.
So I'm always a little confused about that. And the other one is, so regarding to the age that you have discovered, or it was 30.
Yeah, one was between
Facebook is at a different age.
Yeah, if we can go back really quickly. Can I go back?
And how curious.
Just remember.
Down. This one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that the new generation, so the youngest one, under this kind of range of age, will be sensitive to the conservation of nature in Italy, or there will be a gap between generations?
I think that it all depends on what you put out there with the social media platforms. So I think that the content that the campaign, the social media for the campaign are putting out there attracts more this age range. But if they would modify it as, for example, let's say hold on, I don't get the word in English, as usually it gets in Italian, but in English, a kind of like a competition of like, I don't know, a drawing of what a marine protected area looks for you, then they could maybe attract younger people. Because actually the age range for both Instagram and Facebook goes between 13 and 60. So for the 13, they're teenagers. So you kind of have to attract, maybe the drawing is actually for even younger people, but for them, you need to attract them for their age. At 16, you're thinking about completely different things. So you need to create a specific content, a specific action, something that will draw them towards this problem about marine protected areas and marine conservation.
Yeah, because the communication is very different between Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's, yeah.
I actually know that they're working now on a TikTok account, but I mean, for my presentation, my thesis, it was too late. So,
okay.
But yeah, for sure, that's gonna attract much more like younger people.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Jean-Vincent. Let's go see Florian online, and then we'll go to Luana.
Okay, thank you very much. I have so many questions to ask. I will be frustrated, I'm afraid.
Oh God.
No, because this is very interesting. I'm afraid that I'm a bit confused about a lot of information I missed during your presentation because it went really quickly, and I have so many questions. One of the first is about the figure you shown on page 9, the results and the different results depending on the network.
Yeah.
And for example, you shown that Twitter and LinkedIn were really low and non-significant. But as you may know, the quantitative analysis in social networks is not enough. You have to have a qualitative analysis of the content, the way it's spread, the way it's written, on the support of the content. Is it video? Is it are there pictures? Are they only text? Did you have this kind of overview about the content?
I did, yes. Actually, when I was collecting the data, I was collecting all of this. And I'm going to tell you the truth. It was too much. I would have written a thesis of, I don't know, 40,000 words of 200 pages, because it was really too much. I started looking at followers, then I started looking at unfollowers. I started looking at, with the categories, what type of image they put. If it was an image with a written part, what type of caption it was, what type of content it was, because if it was like every Monday we post something about another nonprofit organization. So like I put if it was about a nonprofit organization, if it was about, I don't know, a specific species, and it was way too much data. It was really way too much data. And therefore, I kind of put it down to get this type of results. But in reality, that was my first goal, to put literally everything, to build up and analyze and get a full social media marketing strategy.
Okay. Thank you. That's a very important thing, because, for example, on LinkedIn, you don't put the same content than you put on Instagram and Facebook, and the way you reach people is not the same. So
that's also a thing that because they post, as I said before, they mainly post on Instagram. Then the post that they post on Instagram, they post on Facebook and then on LinkedIn. So they don't actually change the content that they post on every single social media platform, simply because they don't have enough staff in this moment, because as I said, they launched in 2020. So it's still a growing thing. And I truly think that's also what affected these results. Because if you had LinkedIn is a more professional social media platform, so you need to put it in a certain way. And Twitter is a fast one. You have to tweet almost every day about something different. And they simply did not have the time and the people to put in social media platforms.
That's part of the answer. And another question is, what was the public target? Were there a specific public to be assessed or to be targeted, or was it like general public?
General public, everyone.
Okay.
Everybody that could, every single person that we could reach, that we could raise awareness towards. So it wasn't specific for any professionals. It wasn't specific for politics. It wasn't specific for, I don't know, it was literally for everybody. In fact, the information that we put on there, It's simple information. It's relevant information, but written in a content that everybody can actually understand.
Okay, so if I may, Christophe, just the last question that encompasses all the others.
Florent, that's going to be your last question. Enjoy it.
Somehow, do you think your study has some relevant conclusions when you see that it seemed that this campaign was not designed to be on a professional way with clear targets, with chosen networks due to the target they chose, and with professional content and the way to write ad hoc content? Do you think it's really relevant? The results are really relevant?
I have two ways of answering. It's relevant because there's not a lot of study. There's a lot of studies about raising awareness on social media platforms, but there are not a lot of studies targeting the specific platforms, as well as understanding the fact that pushing on the fact that nonprofit organizations, if they want to post on social media platforms, they need to understand what goes behind the social media platforms. The second answer is yes. I think that it's relevant, especially for them, because at the end next week, I'm gonna organize with them a call and tell them, listen, this is an important campaign, and it is working because the followers are constantly increasing. I mean, I finished collecting data in May, and I continued for them in June, and I could see already like there's a constant increase. So I think that it's relevant as well, especially for them, and it extends to the target.
Yeah. As long as you can advise them the way they can grow faster and how they can address the.
Absolutely, yeah. That's my second end goal. My first end goal was this presentation and the pieces.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Florent. Let's go to Sylvana, and this would be Eric then.
Okay, hi Sabrina. Thank you so much for your presentation. Very, very interesting. And the way you brought it was really, really nice to hear. So thank you. I had a question that joins a bit what Florent just said. And I was really curious about, so you did a study on a 6-month period. Did they change the way they were posting, like the frequency of the posts they were doing? Was there a strategy before you arrived that changed while you were there? Or was it always the same frequency of posts or different, anything related to that? And then the second question would be something very similar and linked. What kind of advice would you give to NGOs that are starting and have no or low staff and want to post? Like, is the frequency important? Are stories important? What did you observe, like in highlights? You know, I'm not asking for really specific, but just to know a bit more.
Okay. They did. So at the more or less, yes, the content posted was always the same from the start till now. It did evolve a little bit, but it didn't evolve too much to see. I mean, there was a difference, but not we didn't go from 0 to 1,000. We slowly progressed. When I did give more of an input on certain contents, and that did bring up, especially for the research category, so like showing who lives in the Mediterranean Sea. I thought that was really, really important. So they did go with that idea, and it has been going well for now. For the second question, it's a hard question because you do need to think about staff capacity as well as budget. I would say to, first of all, document on the social media platforms. So for example, as I said, in Italy, the first 2 social media platforms, the main ones are Facebook and Instagram, and then LinkedIn and Twitter. So maybe focus first on a main social media platform to kind of like build up your content. but then absolutely change it according to the different social media platforms and understand what each social media platform needs to get a higher engagement and continue monitoring that engagement. So it's a lot like restaurants, you know, you put a plate out, they don't like it, so you just change it. It's the same thing with social media platforms.
Thank you for your answer.
Did you prepare this sentence before? Or?
No, I'm a bit hungry. I'm a bit hungry.
Thank you, Liana. I will go to Eric and finally conclude with Aldine.
Sabrina, I think you can eat soon, so a few more minutes. Thanks a lot for your presentation. It was very, very interesting. I have a question on the 30 by 30 program in general. You said that so far there's 7% of marine protected areas in the world and only 0 point something are no-take zones at all. The 30% goal, what does it represent in terms of real impact of a protected marine area?
First of all, the 7 points, I don't remember what the point was for the Italian Mediterranean Sea.
Okay.
That is protected. So could you repeat your question for a second? Because I was thinking.
My question is, you mentioned that an AMP have different levels, okay? Some that are really useful, which I believe are the no-take zones, and the other one that is more sort of show off and say we have something that is protected. The 30%, is it only to show off, make it very simple, or is it a real impact in terms of, okay, within the 30%, we want to have at least 5% of no-take zone?
No, the goal is fully protected. So all non-take zones, or at least have specific regulations, like in the, not regulations, sorry, specific permissions, but to actually make it more, actually protect them, because at the end of the day, the majority of the global MPAs are paper parks, so just lines on the map. They put them there and they think like, okay, fine, the people are going to realize that they're MPAs and they're not going to do anything. That's not true. They're actually going to go there and keep on fishing and keep on doing extracted activities that are going to bring to a bad situation. So no, like the 30 by 30 goal is to be fully protected. And if it's not possible to be fully protected, because anyways, I personally believe that you can't do that, because you need to allow people to work. You need to allow people to eat. There's certain variables that you need to take in account. So if they can't really do that, they anyways want to have specific permissions and non-permissions and have actual legislation, like full-on legislation and specific things.
Okay, and that brings me to my second question. Perhaps I missed it, and I'm sorry for that. But what was the content that was posted during your service or your analysis?
So it was divided into 5 categories. So we had awareness. So it's any general of raising awareness about a specific content. So for example, I had, if you can go back. No, for this one. I don't know if you can see it.
Sort of, yeah.
This photo over here, for example, is an example of awareness. So 5 benefits of MPAs. Then this one over here is an example of research. So it shows what species there are in the Mediterranean Sea. Then we had actions, which are small actions that somebody can take to help the Mediterranean Sea or the oceans in general, as well as to get to those targets. So for example, let's say they have a couple of months ago, they have launched a petition always to get 30 by 30 Italia going on and getting the government on board. So that petition was part of the action categories, because on the social media platform, they posted, hey, go and sign, in a better way, but they said, hey, go and sign the petition to help us out. Then there was articles. So anytime that, for example, a magazine would write about the campaign, we would post on the social media platforms about that article. And tags, it was simply about Instagram stories, because anytime that a person or a professional account would tag the campaign 30 by 30, we wanted to see exactly how many people actually supported us and how many people actually put the word out there.
Okay, linking back to the previous answer that you gave me, where I believe that you're completely right in saying that if you protect and have a no-take zone that corresponds to 30% of the whole marine area of Italy, people would freak out and say, oh, I can't go fishing, I can't go do anything, and it's a little bit scary per se. So I'm a little bit surprised that none of the aspects of the campaign was sort of to reassure people. It's saying, hey, if you do that, then this is the value of having the 30% for your daily life.
They also
if I'm convinced that the marine life is nice and beautiful and important, but then at the end I can't eat it anymore, then I stick for the 7% marine protected area.
Yeah, they also maybe I didn't say it, but they also do talk about the socioeconomic benefits of the marine protected area.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. So it's time to conclude now with Aldine.
Hi, Sabrina.
Hi.
So thank you so much for this amazing presentation. Yeah, I'm really, I really have to congratulate you for such work. And after all this question that really dig into deeply into your project and complete it really, really well, then you answer really well. So I need to find my question. It's tough. So what you will love to do with your data now, with this project, what will be the best for you to do now?
I would like to help the campaign to actually understand how to get more information out there. Like, I strongly believe that social media and the internet in general is the way of communication now and in the future. Like, there's no going back to traditional media. You know, the main thing is social media. So what I would like to do is to actually go back to the data that I first collected, that I answered also to the question about, and see exactly what works, what doesn't work, how the social media platforms work in more depth, because there's so much to talk about and so much to look for, and really bring them all of the information to help them implement maximum their social media platforms. Okay, and also this is a way to, like, this is just a start. You can do the same thing for different nonprofit organizations, for marine conservation, and also for different purposes as well.
Okay, and if you have to engage yourself in one of the action now, not about collecting information, but the action, so what you will choose to do?
I would between everything, I would probably I would first start implementing the 2 social media platforms that did not have that much of a difference, or no difference actually at all. I would start from them too, and understand exactly how to implement them and how to make them more active. And I would also try to, because in reality, I said that the location, I mean, obviously the main location is Italy, but we had audience from France, from America, from Russia. So I would also try to make it a little bit more international, because the reality is that, yes, it's focused in Italy, but other countries, other people outside of Italy can actually help as well.
Yeah, but, and you mean, so people, so from all your data you collected, there were data collected from people from outside Italy.
Yeah, like it was 99% Italy, not even 90% Italy, and then 10% a little bit outside.
Okay, so it's still low number. Okay.
No,
okay.
It was really, really low, but it was still there, which I think that it's pretty important to acknowledge.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aldine. Thank you, Sabrina, for this really nice presentation. I can ask a question. I'm not a jury member, but it was really interesting. Good luck. So now, see you soon. Going maybe to see you now. Say hello to students who are maybe still there. So it's the end of this week of presentation. We have a seagull outside saying it. So I will just turn off the YouTube live. I will just have a look to the Kraken room there where there are students still watching. Yes, you can go, Sabrina, you can go.
Thank you, bye.
And then with the jury, we do a short break and we have a little debrief about